What is the foundation of a healthy and a long-lasting partnership? Well, there are four kind of categories that I think about when I think about a healthy and a long-lasting partnership. And it's awareness, it's how you deal with conflict, it is the values that you have and that your partner has, and it's also the connection that you and your partner not only have, but how you are both showing up to strengthen it. And so awareness is both awareness of yourself and awareness of what your partner needs in a relationship. And in order to have self-awareness and awareness of what your partner needs, you got to have a level of understanding about yourself, and you also have to have an interest in learning and being influenced by your partner and what their needs are. And what you'll notice is of the 9 things that I'm going to flag for you, like if you see this shit, it is going to attack one of these pillars of a healthy relationship. The second category was conflict. Now, it may surprise you that I'm labeling conflict as one of the categories of what makes a relationship healthy. But when you look at research about couples who stay married and couples who get divorced, it's the couples who know how to fight with respect and how to resolve problems together and end gridlock. Those are the couples that stay together in healthy relationships. Those folks that don't talk, that hold grudges, that give each other the silent treatment, this is all behavior we're going to be flagging in the 9 signs that your partner is disrespecting you and you got problems in your relationship. That creates massive conflict because you're actually not working anything out. You're in gridlock and standoff with one another. So awareness, the ability to resolve conflict. Another one is shared values. I mean, you hear obviously about trust and honesty in a relationship is super important, but so is the fact that you and your partner have a vision of how it is that together you can create a more meaningful life. Super important. If you're missing that, forget about it. And finally, connection. And I can sum up connection this way. Do you and your partner engage in behavior where you're turning toward one another, where you have an admiration for each other? If you don't, you are not going to have a relationship that gets stronger over time. If you have the kind of relationship where you're constantly turning away from each other or griping about each other, that is not the foundation for a beautiful and a long-lasting relationship. And so I know you're nodding along because what I'm saying makes a lot of sense, right? Of course you got to have self-awareness and awareness of your partner. Of course you need to problem solve and resolve conflict in respectful ways. Of course you should be with somebody that shares your values. And of course I want to be with somebody who turns toward me and helps strengthen the connection. No kidding, Mel. Well, easier said than done. And the reason why it's easier said than done is because there are 9 types of behavior that we kind of dismiss as, okay, not that big of a deal, I can live with it, whatever. And the truth is, now that you understand what really builds a healthy relationship and strengthens it over time, you'll see why these behaviors that I'm about to explain are non-negotiables. Like if you spot this in a relationship that you're in, you got to flag it, you got to call it out, and you cannot tolerate it. Because if you allow this behavior to continue, it will destroy your relationship. Okay, so behavior number 1, your partner keeps lying to you. And I don't care if it's just little white lies about where they were or where they spent their money or who they were hanging out with. Oh, I was just hanging out with the guys, but it was a particular one of his friends that you don't like that much. So lying in a relationship, it literally cuts to the core of breaking apart any kind of shared values because you need trust and honesty. And even the white lies mean that there's no trust and honesty because when somebody's telling you a white lie, they're hiding information from you or they don't want to deal with your reaction. So now they're manipulating you. And in terms of connection, the second that somebody decides to lie about something, they're turning away from you and they're disrespecting you. And so lying, non-negotiable. And don't just kind of roll your eyes at the white lies. You got to flag this stuff. You got to draw a boundary with it because it will not work in a long-term successful relationship. Second behavior that you have to address is when your partner gives you the silent treatment. Giving someone the silent treatment is one of the most manipulative, dysfunctional ways to behave in an adult relationship. I mean, think about the silent treatment, like a kid. Fine, I'm not going to talk to you. When somebody gives you the silent treatment, number one, it's probably something that their caregivers gave to them when they were a kid. So this is their default way of dealing with conflict and upset. They take themselves away from you. They turn away from you. They, instead of turning toward you to resolve conflict, they keep things in a gridlock because they refuse to talk to you about it. This is like an emotional guillotine when somebody does this to you. It is immature, it is manipulative, and it is selfish, and it is a power move. You're dealing with somebody who either is so uncomfortable talking about their feelings or so uncomfortable having conversations to resolve conflict, or worse, that they are such a narcissist or engage in narcissistic behaviors that they literally stonewall you instead of talking to you. This should not be tolerated, period. This is a coping mechanism, if your partner's doing it, that they've probably been doing for a long time. And you've got to draw a boundary with this, because you cannot build a successful, loving, and trusting partnership with somebody who at any moment will just turn away from you, cut you off, and stonewall you with silence. It's immature, it's rude, it's disrespectful, and you need to literally call it out and not tolerate it. Another behavior is when they use your insecurities against you. Now, remember the 4 things I was talking about? Like, you got to have self-understanding and understanding about your partner, and you got to have shared values, and you got to have connection. When somebody uses your insecurities against you, that's mean. That's belittling. And what happens over time, if somebody is using your insecurities against you, like let's say that English is your second language and they make jokes about your accent or the fact that you talk so fast that they can't understand you. Or they make jokes about what you drink or what you eat or whatever it may be, your skinny legs. When they use that stuff against you, the way the ex treated you, it could be anything. That is the exact opposite of connection. That is the exact opposite of respect. That is belittling, it's abusive, and this is a major red flag, and you should not tolerate it. Kind of taking it a step further, do not ever let your partner call you names. This is number 4. And especially if they sort of dismiss it, this is called gaslighting. When they call you a bitch, or they call they like make fun of you, they call you names you don't like, and then they're like, what's wrong with you? Can't you take a joke? I didn't really mean it. If your partner is calling you names, this is not a form of connection. This certainly does not recognize shared values. They're not resolving conflict, they're creating it. And more importantly, if you tell them, don't freaking call me that, like it's rude, it makes me feel bad, and they continue to do it, now you know you're with somebody who doesn't have your best interest in mind, and you need to end it as far as I'm concerned. If you got somebody who's calling you names and you tell them not to and they keep doing it, and then they gaslight you and say you're the problem, that. This is not a relationship for you. The 5th thing that we need to signal as a red flag is that they constantly interrupt you, talk down to you, talk over you, or kind of shoot you that look like, I don't want to hear from you. What that signals to you is they don't care what you think. What that signals to you is that there is no connection here. There is superiority. What that signals to you is that they believe that you're not in a relationship. They believe that they're more important than you, because what they think is more important than what you may think. In fact, if somebody's always doing this, they don't really want to understand or connect with you. They just want to dominate you. And so that is also not going to work, and should not be tolerated because that's not a healthy relationship. The sixth thing that you want to be on the lookout for is if your partner will not allow you to have some independence. Said in a scarier way, if your partner is controlling or slightly stalkerish or crazy jealous or is going through your things or snooping through your email or doesn't trust you or kind of accuses you of things, this is a danger sign because this will not get better over time. This is somebody's crap from the past, probably an ex, or probably something that they witnessed growing up in the household that they were in, that are major trust issues for themselves, that they're now taking out on you. A healthy, mature, adult relationship is one where there is mutual respect and mutual trust. And by the way, you don't earn someone's trust. If you're in a healthy relationship, trust is given. Trust is assumed. And trust is broken whenever there's behavior that causes it to be broken. But if you're in this relationship with somebody, you've done nothing wrong, and this person is controlling you and accusing you and snooping and acting in a way that clearly demonstrates they don't trust you, you need to get out, and that person needs to get into a therapist chair because it's not your job to fix this. Number 7, if your partner is making big decisions without you, there is no relationship, period. If your partner is, taking a couple $1,000s out of the joint savings account to go buy, something that they wanted without telling you, if they have a secret credit card and they're making purchases and you have no idea about this, it's also a form of lying. Let's say that they've just decided that over the holidays, you're going to spend the holidays with his or her family, and they didn't even consult you on it. These kinds of big decisions, the kind of decisions that impact you, these are decisions that you're supposed to make together. These are decisions that couples talk through. These are decisions that if, there's a little bit of stuff to sort out, you seek to understand where one another's coming from. You compromise, you listen to each other. When somebody's making big decisions without you and then kind of acts all annoyed when you are not happy about it or when you call them out on it, that's a huge sign that this is not a relationship that's going to last. This is a dictatorship where somebody's calling the shots and expects you to fall in line. Not going to work. Number 8, if your partner is constantly telling you how you're supposed to feel versus listening to you and validating how you feel, you're not really in a relationship with somebody. You are with somebody who not only doesn't have their own self-awareness, but they're not interested in gaining any self-awareness about how you're feeling about anything. And so if they're ignoring your opinions and then telling you that you should do this or that or the other thing, if they say, oh, come on, that was just a joke, why aren't you laughing? If they say it's no big deal, I don't know why you're upset about it. If they're constantly not listening to you and invalidating how you feel, this is a major issue. You're not with somebody that's turning toward you. They've turned away from you. They're not interested in becoming aware or connected to you. This is somebody who just has you there next to them, and there's really not a strong connection. I'm dead serious about this, and I know that I'm making this bigger, and here's why. So many of us just see these warning signs. They're like, well, it's something. It is a big deal. It's a big deal because, there's a big difference between what people say and how they act. And if you want to know how somebody truly feels, ignore what they're saying and watch how they behave. And here's the 9th sign that you have a partner that disrespects you. You are in a relationship that is not healthy, that is not going to go the distance, or if it does go the distance, it's because you're ignoring these things and you're not happy. But it's when your partner ignores your boundaries. You see, boundaries are critical. Boundaries are critical not only in friendships and with work, but boundaries are so important in your romantic relationships. In fact, Healthy relationships are relationships that have boundaries and between people who establish and respect one another's boundaries. Like, so when you have a partner that takes some of your money, doesn't tell you, doesn't return the money, spends it on something you know that you don't want, that is an example of somebody crossing boundaries. If somebody's invading your personal space, if somebody is pressuring you to do things that you don't want to do, that's an example of how somebody's crossing your personal boundaries. If a person is speaking to you in a way that is demeaning or calling you names, again, another example of how somebody is ignoring your boundaries. If your spouse or partner is blowing up your phone while you're trying to get work done at work and you've told them not to, this is another example of how they are disrespecting your boundaries. Now, the good news is these 9 things are also examples that if you are in a relationship where there is a foundation and you raise any one of these issues, hey, honey, this is a boundary of mine. When I'm at work, I need to concentrate on work. And it is embarrassing and distracting when you are texting me all day long. And then when you get upset that I can't text you back, and I need you to stop doing that. Okay? Like, I cannot text you all day long while I'm at work. If your partner's reaction is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I just missed you, babe. I promise I will work on it. Thank you for telling me. That's a great sign. If you say to your partner, hey, I don't want you to tell me what you think. I just need you to listen and I need you to validate what I'm feeling. And they go, oh gosh, sorry. Yeah, of course. Thank you for telling me that. And you start to develop a new habit of when you're about to talk, saying to your partner, hey, I just need to vent. Can you listen and not give me advice right now? I just need somebody to hear me. And your partner goes, great, I will absolutely listen. Now you're taking this thing that used to bother you and you're turning toward each other and working through it. If you call out your partner because they made big decisions without you, and they say, you're right, I shouldn't have done that. It would have felt terrible if you had committed to your parents that we were going to be with them this year and you didn't talk to me first. I got it. Thanks for telling me that. That's an example of how these things, when called out with the right person, has you turn toward one another. If telling your partner that their lack of trust because of what their ex did is driving you crazy, it's disrespectful, and it must end, and that gets them to go to therapy, that's a sign of somebody working hard and gaining the awareness that they need so that they can be a better partner. That's a good thing. All the other behaviors too, if they stop calling you the names and apologize, if they become better at not interrupting, but become better at listening, if they stop using those insecurities and start lifting you up instead, and if your partner starts working really hard, because for people who have the silent treatment as a default, this is kind of hardwired. If they're avoiding conflict, stonewalling you, but you see them trying, you see them working with a therapist, you see them using simple things like saying, I can't have this conversation right now because I'm too emotional. Give me 10 minutes to collect myself, and I will come back in this room and we will talk through it. That's a good thing because you're seeing the person take the feedback and actually try to change. And finally, lying, when you catch them, there's kind of 2 liars. There's the people who are lying to you because they are manipulative assholes. And that's always going to be a problem. And then there are the people that are lying to you because they're terrified to disappoint you, or because they have low self-esteem, or because they've always been lied to and this is kind of the default, but they don't want to do it. And so they're willing to do the work to become more self-aware, to get to the heart of why they're so afraid to tell you the truth. And it typically has to do with self-worth and self-confidence and self-love. And honestly, those kind of breakthroughs that you have as a couple that are the result of you calling out these 9 forms of disrespect that are causing breakdowns, If you're in the right relationship, any breakdown that you have will become a breakthrough that causes y'all to turn toward one another and work on creating better trust, better communication to solve these problems and old habits together. That's when these things are good. If you get pushback or nastiness when you call out these 9 things, lies, silent treatment, using insecurities against you, calling you names, interrupting when you're talking, not trusting you and invading your privacy, making big decisions without you, telling you how you're supposed to feel, or ignoring your boundaries, honey, there is an exit sign over the door, and you need to locate it and walk out it. I want to teach you the 5 signs that your relationship is over. Recognizing these signs is critical, even though it might be hard for you to accept it. Now, the fact that you're even watching this video tells me that you're already thinking that this relationship isn't going to last. And even if that isn't necessarily true, those thoughts that you're having that make you second guess yourself and start acting weird and clingy, those will destroy a good relationship. You have a choice to make right now. You either address the 5 things I'm about to talk about in this video, or face the truth and end the relationship yourself because it's over. So what are the 5 signs? Sign number 1, you don't feel like yourself. In this relationship, you feel like you're walking on eggshells. You don't know how to act when you're in public or when you're around their friends. You aren't sure if you should hold hands. You're uncomfortable talking about your feelings because you don't know if they're on the same page. All of these things mean you don't feel comfortable being you. And any relationship where you have to twist yourself into somebody that you're not in order to keep the peace, it only starts a war inside of you. And those kind of relationships, they always blow up. The second sign, you're constantly questioning how you should communicate. If you're nervous about sending a text asking if they want to hang out, or do you obsess over whether they opened your Snap but they haven't responded, or how long it's been since they texted you back? Do they watch your Instagram story but not respond to your text messages? Are you compulsively checking social media to try to get the clues you need that it's okay to reach out? Any relationship where you spend more time questioning rather than talking about communication is a relationship that's broken. Sign number 3, you think about where the relationship stands all the time. So do you constantly think about questions like, where's this going? Are we exclusive? Are we committed? Can I introduce you to my family and take you to a work event? How should I introduce you? What are you thinking? What do you say about me? Not knowing where you stand means this relationship doesn't stand a chance. Sign number 4, you're starting to get annoyed. You're now the one opening snaps and not responding. You're saying you're too busy to hang out in order to send a message. You're hesitant to commit to future plans because you don't know the future of this relationship. You snap at them more than usual. All those cute little things that used to make you laugh, they're really annoying. And here's the kiss of death. If their name pops up on your phone or they walk through the door at the end of the day and you feel dread and not excitement, that's a sign that you're over this person. And the 5th and final sign, you're questioning whether or not you have the same values. If you're starting to feel like you're losing yourself, for example, maybe you're drinking more than you'd like. You're spending less time with your friends. You're skipping the gym. You're only doing things, for example, like listening to certain types of music because it interests them. This is a major problem. If there isn't a balance between the two of you, you will always feel like a less important part of the relationship because you are. Now, here's a quick test to see if you're losing yourself. Just go out alone tonight with your friends, and if it feels like a relief because you can finally act like yourself, that's a sign that this is not a relationship for you. I bet what you're doing is you're confusing chemistry for compatibility. You see, chemistry is like a match that gets lit, but eventually it burns out. Compatibility means you and your partner bring out the best in you, which is why it goes the distance. It's more important to get it done than to make it perfect. And when we do live streams like Coffee Talk, in a way that actually works, which would mean somebody would be here supporting me, oftentimes we don't get them done because we're always on the move. And so this morning I'm doing it solo. This is certainly not perfect. It's not the way I like to do it. Clearly, if I'm in my PJs and we got people running around and I can't even find my coffee and I don't have anything printed out and I'm not even organized, but we're getting it done. And I think it's important for you to see that even, that especially those of us that are out there in the world doing big things, that one of the reasons why we're able to do big things is because we have trained ourselves to just push forward even when things are not the way that you want them to be going, to keep your cool, to roll with the punches even when you don't have the support that you need. And so, I had something happen yesterday. I was in the middle of giving a speech. So imagine this, you're on stage, you are 20 minutes into your speech, you have 40 more minutes to go, you have 30 more slides to go to, which is what was happening at that point. And all of a sudden, my laptop dies. I mean, just blank, you guys. So I've got an entire audience. I'm through the first third of my speech. I have 2/3 of the speech to go, and my speech is a story that has a ton of videos and photos in it, and my laptop died. And what had happened is the AV team had plugged the laptop into a podium that had no power in it. So my laptop was set up correctly. It was plugged in, but it was plugged into something that had absolutely no power source. So over the course of the hour before the tech check to when I was on the stage, the laptop had run out of juice. And so all of a sudden, here I am, completely cold laptop. I just, had this moment where I thought, the first thing in my mind was, holy cow, what am I going to do for the next 40 minutes? And I could feel my stomach start to go crazy and the butterflies to kick in. And it just, wow. I was extremely panicked for about a second. And then I was like, okay, use the tools. Don't get nervous, get excited, because you can show everybody what looks like in front of a live audience to have a massive technical breakdown and not lose your cool. And so I made a joke about it. The AV team ran up. I said, look, you guys have no power here, so take it back there, get it plugged in, and I'll talk for 2 or 3 minutes while you get this thing set up. Now, meanwhile, I'm thinking, while I'm talking to a live audience, what if they don't get this set up? What am I going to do? How am I going to fill the 40 minutes when the whole speech is not only anchored in the story, but it's anchored in all of these photographs and proof of people's stories from around the world? And so I'm like, don't panic, use the tools, Mel. And then all of a sudden the guy shouts out, what's your password? Because my screen was locked. So then I thought, okay, we're going to get this done, not a problem. It took about 5 minutes for things to get back up and running, and it was one of the longer 5-minute periods of my life, but I got through it. And one of the reasons why I got through it is because I've trained myself to roll with the punches. That's what I've trained myself to do. So this is very important because I made a major mistake with Chris. And that is, I did not understand what it does to a man's psyche when he is not successful, and more dangerous when something he's doing is failing and failing publicly. And I had a lot of anger out of financial fear, and I'm talking very generally about standard gender norms.
Right.
So for a guy, the pressure to be a man is about providing, it's about money in the bank, it's about all of the stuff wrapped around success. We feel the same pressure from society around how we look, about our age, about how thin we are, and the pressure is the exact same. Because what happens is when you're not successful as a guy, you not only feel the fear that you're feeling, you feel shame, you feel embarrassment, you feel like a loser, you feel like the world's worst husband. So you got to understand that, because he's already trashing himself more than you ever will. And then what happens though is when you add on to that any kind of criticism, any kind of opinion, any kind of anything but encouragement, it craters them even more. And so Chris and I got into this mode where he was shutting down, he was snapping, he was angry, we were both drinking way too much. And luckily, a bunch of stuff started to happen, and just like you, as I was changing, it was not on the same timeline that he was changing. And so any of my optimism, any of my enthusiasm, any of my success that was starting to happen only shined a light on everything that was lacking. And so what your husband needs, I don't know if he deserves it or not, but I'm going to tell you what he needs. I'm going to assume he deserves it because he's probably working really hard and he's probably beating himself up, is he needs encouragement. He doesn't need coaching from you. That'll destroy your marriage. He needs encouragement and validation. And the other thing that I noticed, and this is what's going to come next, because if your career starts to take off because you're doing all this personal development and your mindset's on fire and you're super expansive, which is super annoying, by the way, to somebody who's down low, you're going to get what's called breadwinner resentment rage, which as the roles flip in your marriage, you're going to start to get pissed off that you're the one doing everything and that you're bringing money in. And you're also doing most of the chores at home. And why aren't you stepping up when I'm going over here? Which, by the way, makes him feel like this too. So what do you do about it? I think the most important thing is you guys gotta have a conversation, like one for real, about where he's at and what he's feeling. And ask him, what does he need for support? Because we only guess. And, I can tell you one other story. When we got the news about the talk show, not going to season 2, I, of course, was in like an emotional roller coaster for a good week or so. And every day I would come home because my way of dealing with stuff is to try to fix it. And so every day I would come home and I'd be like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go raise money and I'm going to buy the show back myself. And then I'm going to call the syndicator and I'm going to do it myself. And then Chris, being analytical, would go, so who exactly are you going to call? And he's not questioning, he's just curious. And then the second day I would come home and I'd be like, I have an idea. I'm going to go straight to all the advertisers that integrated with the show and I'm going to pitch them on a digital, and he'd be like, oh, so who's on the top of the list? He's just having a conversation. And then the third day I come home and I'm like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start doing online courses again. Oh, so you're going to use Kajabi as a back? And I'm like, will you stop asking me questions? And he looked at me, and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to help. And I said, let me tell you what I need. Until I'm sane, whenever I come home with an idea, just say these words. That's a great idea. Because I just need validation right now. That's all that I need. And so I think you should ask him, what can you do to support him? If you see him doing things to try to change what's going on, validate that and understand he's already beating himself up. And your job, if you want to help him resurrect the business, if you want this to bring you together, you gotta be the one that's lifting him up through this because he can't do that for himself. What's the key to staying connected when you're in a long-distance relationship and you don't get to see your partner? Well, first of all, I think John O'Leary and Mel Robbins, we are the two best-equipped people to answer this question. How long have you been married?
We've been married 15 years.
We've been married 22 years, and John has how many kids?
We have 4 children.
I have 3 children, and we are also on the road at least half the year.
That's about that.
Yeah, so I guess my secret is I text my husband all day long. I send him photos from the road. I feel more connected to my kids sometimes when I'm traveling because they miss me and they accept my FaceTime calls. And when I'm home, I notice that they're like, can I have some money in the car keys? I gotta go. And then when I try to FaceTime them or something, they're not. So I have longer conversations with them over FaceTime, but all kidding aside, I visually take them along with me by taking photos and texting it. We have a family group chat that I'm constantly texting in with them. We Snapchat a lot with the kids.
Awesome.
I don't know. I know. I spend a lot of time acknowledging what Chris is doing because it blows to be the partner at home.
Much harder job.
Much harder job. And we get, when you're traveling, you're distracted and going out to eat and bumping into fun people. When you're home, you're still doing the laundry and the kid shuffle and walking the dog, and so you can feel unappreciated.
Mel got a standing ovation today.
So did you.
Chris is at home cleaning up vomit right now.
Yeah.
Dog poop from the living room. It's a
Probably.
hard job.
Yeah. So what do you do? What are your tricks to stay connected?
Technology, of course. So that's a wonderful way to do it. The best way I would suggest is when I'm home, like you can't call me. Work can't get me. I'm with her only. So for me, it's not about balance. It's about flow. But when I'm home, I'm completely engaged as a husband and as a dad and as a leader in life, I hope. And that's one piece. The second is this. A couple years ago, we were struggling a little bit in our marriage. Not bad, but enough. And so I committed on January 1 to make a list of everything that Beth was doing right. Because I was finding myself making a list of things she was doing wrong. And this was a secret. So this is she just received this. But on January 1, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, for 360 days without her knowing it. And then on Christmas morning, she's opening up all the gifts, and I never give her good gifts. I give her like hot red dresses that she can wear on Valentine's Day. It's brutal. I never give her a good gift, but I gave her this old rusted out leather journal. And she opens it up January 1, January 2, there's a receipt from our dinner together, a couple trips that we took together.
I am stealing this idea.
It was awesome, not only for her to receive it, but all year long, I was falling in love with what she was doing right rather than what she was doing wrong. And so I still do this now, 3 years in. It's just an awesome thing that helps me remind myself how awesome my wife is.
That is incredible. Your answer is way better than mine, and I'm stealing this idea.
Go for it. You'll love it.
I love it.
Awesome.
Love it. Every single woman that's watching this just collectively went, my husband is a jerk.
He is a jerk. Make him do better.
John is the winner.
So for the ladies, we might be jerks too, because maybe we can also acknowledge how great the Chris's and the Steves, the Roys are in the marketplace. What you focus on grows. So focus on the good, and it's going to start magnifying.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. Oh, I love that. Yes. That's just not for heterosexual couples, too, by the way. That works for any couple of any shape, size, kind, whatever. Yes, because we all want the same thing. We just want to feel like we matter and somebody notices.
That's a fact.
Oh, my God, I'm stealing it. Honest answer is that I think it wasn't until I discovered the high five habit that I profoundly realized how much self-hatred I was dealing with. And
despite everything else, yeah.
Well, and this I think is a really big piece of the power of this, especially if you're somebody who's achievement oriented, and everybody that listens to this podcast feels a big calling and wants to do more in the world and make a bigger difference and a bigger impact. There's a real danger that's very common, Jay, that you start to marry, or you've always married, being worthy or lovable with what you're doing and what you're achieving. And it works both ways in terms of if you don't have the number on the scale, it means, again, the dust on the mirror. You are not worthy because you haven't achieved it yet. And for those of us that have achieved some things that we've set out to do, what happens is you find that as soon as you achieve the thing, you actually need to do something else.
Bigger,
better, because it was a thing that you achieved that made you lovable or worthy. And the real trick, and this is everything, is being able to know and feel in your bones that you are lovable and worthy just because you're breathing. And that was a huge breakthrough for me.
Yeah.
And so, no, I never celebrated because I think I was so married to this idea that unless I'm doing or winning or achieving, and it happens so subtly when you're little because you start to get so much positive praise when you get a good grade or when you do something at school or when you make your mates laugh or whatever it might be, that you start to go, oh, that's what love feels like. Oh, if I do that. And so you outsource love and validation to outside things. And I'm here to tell you, we all got to learn how to bring it back home and anchor the validation and love that you need where you are right now every single day. And it's only in discovering this that I had to confront just how much I was beating myself up, just how much I was tearing myself down, and how I was chasing these things. Because what I actually wanted was to feel loved. Like if you ask yourself, okay, great, you want to make $1 million. Why? There's a feeling that you're looking for from that. And if you can start to work on bringing that feeling into your day-to-day life for yourself, it changes the way that you go about achieving things. Like I didn't even enjoy half the stuff that I did because I was constantly maniacally focused on the things that weren't working rather than the 100 things that were. And the same is true with everybody's day. You don't even know the number of amazing things you do every day. You feed the dog, high five. You got the kids to school, high five. You read 10 pages of the book, high five. You said a nice thing to a stranger, high five. You got something done at work, high five. You got through 70% of your inbox, high five. Instead, you focus and ruminate on the one thing you didn't get to, and then you use that as evidence, again, dust on the mirror, to see a human being that's not measuring up and never will, and all that stuff their stupid fourth grade teacher said to you must be true, dust on the mirror. No. You need to interrupt this, period.
Yeah. That is so, so powerful. Everything you just said, I was just nodding along thinking, this is so true. I saw a video recently from a good friend of mine, Jason Goldberg, and he was talking about a study at the Olympics where people who win bronze are happier than those who win silver. And so coming third makes you happy than coming second, because the people that come second, they go, oh, but I was a second away from first. And so they feel disheartened. Whereas the person who came third goes, at least I made it on the podium.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Make it to the podium.
Yes.
Put on the clothes.
Or just put on the clothes.
Just put on the clothes. But that's making it to the podium. Like to me, that's like just getting there. It's not about... And actually what you really hit something when you were saying that about celebration for me. It's not just about celebration, it's about what we celebrate in our lives. So when we celebrate our birthday, we're celebrating life. When you're celebrating an achievement, you're still celebrating a thing.
Yes.
And so celebrating life, when you're celebrating your breath, when you're celebrating your life force, your energy, your soul, the ability to love, the ability to be kind, the ability to have relational exchanges like we're having right now, that's what you celebrate. Because if you only celebrate things, now you're waiting for the next thing. And I actually learned that completely from my wife, Radhi, whether it was consciously or unconsciously. She didn't even know what she was doing. This was totally all in my own head. But I realized that every time I reached a new external peak or a new thing, I expected to receive more love from her. I expected that she would think something more cool of me. And the answer was she didn't. She loved me the same. And I would always wonder, why does she not love me for this? Like, how does she not respect me? How does she not feel it differently? I mean, look what I'm doing. Look what I've achieved. And when I kept working with that thought, and I reflect deeply, and I love breaking down my own thoughts and figuring it out, and I really get stuck in there, I realized that my wife loves me for my life and who I am, not what I do.
Yes.
And so she unintentionally trained me and taught me to disconnect my value from what I do to who I am, which is what she loves me for. And I realized that that was so much more beautiful and so much more powerful and so much more meaningful to be loved for who I am than what I do and achieve.
Yes, and here's now an even bigger thing.
Please.
You already do this, but as you're listening to Jay and I want you to actually grasp how profound it would be if you could feel that way about yourself. If you could always just look in the mirror and see a human being that's trying and that's worthy of a high five, and a human being that failed and okay, we're going to brush it off and that's worthy of a high five. Somebody who is running the marathon of life that you're going to celebrate every step of the way. And, you know, I also want to take this and flip this in the opposite, because I think this is where people really get mucked up. This happened in my own marriage. And it's only a recent discovery between Chris and I. And that is that we had the opposite thing happen, Jay. So when Chris and his best friend went into the restaurant business and they poured 7 years into it and gave it their go, and at the end of the day, They sold it, for pennies on the dollar to the next investor, and they did not return the profit that they had hoped they would return to their investors. Now, what was interesting about watching this all go down is that our best friend, who was Chris's partner, was able to leave the experience and go, okay, entrepreneurship. I'm so proud of us. We put in so much work. We built something amazing. We had an incredible brand. We were incredible leaders. Da, 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 da. Did we return the profit? No. But that's not everything in life. And he moved on. My husband could not. He literally said, because I didn't achieve, because I failed, I am a failure who is not worthy of love. And for 7 years, he has walked into a bathroom with the dust that has said, I am a failure. And so as you have been looking for, why doesn't she love me more? Somebody who fails goes, how can you still love me? And it's only until, it doesn't matter how much I love the guy, it doesn't matter how much I build him up. And, I'm so proud of everything that he's done and all the stuff that Chris is doing. And he's had a massive breakthrough in this. And part of it is through the high five habit because of the resistance. But I can't do that. Look at the failure that I've been. If you don't love yourself, you won't allow somebody else to love you.
Yeah.
And so when you can separate what you're doing from your soul and your intention and your spirit and your humanity, and you can stand with yourself every morning, and that high five doesn't necessarily become celebration, it becomes acceptance, and it becomes compassion, and it becomes acknowledgement, and then it becomes slowly celebration and momentum and forward energy that you need when life drags you down.
Yeah.
And so it's really a profound point you just made, that it's only when you love yourself for breathing, for living, for being, just as you are, that level of acceptance that we so want from everybody else. And I'm telling you, you have an opportunity to do it for yourself by keeping your promises, by being kind to yourself, by standing before yourself and seeing a human being who needs you and who loves you and who's going to be with you your whole life.
It's beautiful. It's amazing. Just sitting there listening to you talk about that. And when I'm thinking about what you said with Chris, we recently celebrated your 25th wedding anniversary, which is incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, that's goals. So me and my
yeah.
wife, we've been married, 5, together for 8. When I hear you're 25, I'm like, share all the wisdom, give it to me. Tell me about what it's been like learning from each other, especially seeing as your job is teaching.
Yeah.
It's coaching. It's working with CEOs and organizations and people, and of course, millions of people online, but you're working with so many companies as well.
Yeah.
How has it been for him and for you to learn from each other? Has that been easy? Has that been harder? When you talk about the 7 years and you're saying that broke partly through the high five habit for him, I love hearing that because that makes me go, yes, like not only does this work for everyone, it works for the people closest to you, which says so much. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, and also, to Chris's credit, he also got into therapy and,
he did the work. Yeah.
He did the work.
Yeah.
And he started a men's retreat to help other men called Soul Degree to do the work. And we've done a lot of work together, which I think is really important. It's so important to do work on yourself because it's not your partner's job to make you happy.
No.
It's your job to figure out how to bring the happiest and healthiest and kindest you into the relationship. Because when you can do that, you can build a nurturing crucible, if that's even the right word, where is that the right word? I don't even know what. You can build like a pot. I don't know. That sounds very unglamorous, but we camp a lot. I think the hardest thing, and it took me a long time, was realizing that the most important thing in a relationship, if you want it to go the distance, is being kind and actually staying interested in the other person's experience and point of view. Like the challenge of being in a relationship that long is you think you know somebody.
Yeah.
And
so true.
The fact is, I don't care how great your relationship is or how bad it is or whatever, but how great it is in particular. There are parts of the person you're with that you don't know because even they don't know that.
Totally.
And I don't even think Chris realized the extent to which he was subconsciously pile driving himself with his mindset. And it didn't matter that I thought he was the most incredible person in the world or the greatest father or wonderful spouse or my biggest cheerleader. He didn't feel like those things. And so I would say being kind, listening, I think also making requests of each other are really important. So instead of pointing out what's wrong, think about what you need. Because even though Chris and I have been together for 27 years now, married 25, I'm still not a mind reader. And when you can make requests about what you need instead of letting it get to you and then acting out, that changes everything.
That's incredible. I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for opening up. I met Chris for the first time probably about a month ago now. He's wonderful. Like, he's just such a gentleman, so kind, so sweet, so loving, very warm. I mean, we had so many beautiful interactions and conversations while we were in Napa together. And I just love seeing you both continuing to, really just show what real strength looks like as a couple. And,
well, Jay, I think one of the other things that has been fascinating is you got to leave room for each other to grow.
Yeah.
So we've also gone through tremendous evolutions as a couple where, for a while we were both working and we were sort of 50-50 in terms of what we earned. And then Chris started to out earn me. And then I kind of took the second role. And then next thing you know, he's going into entrepreneurship and I'm sort of growing in the corporate market. Next thing you know, we find ourselves financially imploding, $800,000 in debt, horrible experience 12 years ago, about to lose everything. And what was interesting is it was that crisis that flipped us into the right roles.
Wow.
Chris, as you met, his name's Christopher Robbins. He's like the world's most nurturing man, Winnie the Pooh's owner, for crying out loud. He doesn't care about money and building things and fancy stuff. He would live in a yurt if I would want to. I do not. Did you hear that, Chris? I do not. It was through that I discovered my own ambition, that I actually do care about building things. I do want to go out and play that game in business. I freaking love it. And it happened at the perfect time because it was at the moment when we had kids in middle school and they needed somebody more nurturing than me to be home. And they needed somebody. And so our kids have had the greatest gift because they've seen our partnership evolve. They've seen a dad that stayed home for a while. They've seen a mom off in the world building something. And the biggest message is that you're only going to stay together if you continue to talk.
Yeah.
One of the things that our therapist has said to us that I think about all the time, so steal this. It's really easy when you get along to do the logistics and transactions of life. But you can start to find yourself very sequestered from each other, but together and in roles, but never going deeper. And so I think when you notice that either you're not growing or your partner's not growing, that's when it's really important to start turning toward one another. Why don't you just tell me a little bit about the issue that you're dealing with?
So my girlfriend and I have been dating for like a little over 2 years. I have the biggest communication problem in our relationship. She's very expressive and she wants to know how I feel about things and what I'm thinking. And I internalize a lot of things. I don't want to communicate. Growing up, that really wasn't something that was taught. Like everyone that I have seen growing up, my family, everyone just shuts down. Then a few days or weeks or even months go by, and then it's like, okay, just move on and act like nothing ever happened. So.
And what is her reaction when you withdraw? When you withdraw, do you just get silent or do you leave the room? What's your mode of withdrawing?
I just want to go out for a walk or something or lay in bed, and I don't even want to talk. And she wants to try and work things out and like, let's talk about this. What's bothering you? I internalize a lot of things. And so she'll say something and I immediately jump to the conclusion that she doesn't love me anymore or this isn't going to work.
This question is so relevant for so many couples, and I'm so proud of you for sharing it. The first thing I want to do is I want to acknowledge you because you zeroed in on the reason why you do this. Every single one of us learned how to communicate positively or negatively based on what we saw growing up. And it takes hold in us before you even realize. Most of this patterning is what I'm going to call it, that you have absorbed. You absorbed by the age of 5. So if what you saw in your household is that the moment there was conflict, people shut down, this is a pattern. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a pattern. This is just how your parents and your caregivers dealt with the stress and conflict in their life. They avoided it. And so it's no surprise that you now are an adult feeling stuck. And the reason why you feel stuck is because you are stuck in a pattern. The great thing about patterns is once you recognize that you have one and you can identify it, and you can identify the situations where this pattern takes over like that, and suddenly next thing you know, you're sleeping in your bed instead of talking to your girlfriend. Given that you saw this growing up, what happens now that you're an adult, now that you've seen this, and this is what was modeled for you, is that whenever you're in a situation where you start to feel, uh-oh, my girlfriend's getting upset with me, uh-oh, she wants to talk, uh-oh, we just figured about something. Before you even think, I got to talk, your nervous system remembers what it was like to be a kid in a household when your parents were about to argue with each other, or when your parents got upset with each other. And what you witnessed was separation. So before you even think, what happens is your nervous system goes, oh, wait a minute, I recognize this. This is a moment of conflict. I know what to do. I leave when this happens because that's what I saw. It happens before you even think about it. So let me give you some advice for a couple things that you can do. I think the two of you should work together to come up with a sentence that you say when you are arguing. And maybe it is something like, I am not going to leave you. I am standing right here. I am not going anywhere. And we need to talk about this. And you need to stand here with me. What you need is just that reassurance up front. I love you. This is why I'm telling you why I'm upset. Let's work through it. Maybe you need that as a safe word, so to speak, to cue you that this is a moment to stay. The second thing that I want you to do is I want you to always use the I statements. So when we get into arguments with the people that we love, or with anybody for that matter, and we start going, well, you do this, and then you raise your voice, and then you do this thing, and da. You always, always, always want to use I feel. And so when you're arguing, I know it's uncomfortable for you to talk about your feelings. You can say, I am scared to say this because I'm scared you're going to leave. I'm scared to say this because my mom and stepdad never talked about anything, so this is new for me. You can always talk about what's going on for you. And so for you to always anchor in choosing what you're feeling and choosing to say it out loud, it's a way for you to live even more openly and more fully and be more connected to her. The final thing I want to give you is that if this is a really intense argument about something, and you really do need a second to cool down, the only way that it is, I think, respectful to yourself and to your partner, if you need to go do something and remove yourself, is to say, I need 30 minutes. You put a timeline on it. And then you say, and then I promise I will come back and I will resolve this with you.
I think those are very useful. I think I can definitely implement those in my life and see how that's going to change things, my relationship with her,
The one thing I know in talking to you, you're going to be okay. And you are going to have a life full of love because you're doing the really hard work right now of learning how to love yourself. Every time you choose to stand in that moment that's terrifying, and you choose yourself and you choose to express what you're feeling, and you choose to stand there and love yourself enough, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. How do you know when a relationship is dead? Because again, what's our quote? Stop watering dead plants. First of all, Remember the golden rule about relationships: you can't change anyone else, you can only change yourself. Have you taken a look in the mirror and figured out what you need to change about yourself in order to change the dynamic in the relationship? That's number one. If you've done that, that's check one. The next thing is, have you asked your partner to change specific behavior in order to support you? This is the last coaching session of Take Control of Your Life, our #1 new release on Audible. The last coaching session is all about a woman who's with somebody she loves deeply, but his drinking is triggering her childhood trauma of growing up in a very abusive alcoholic household. And she had never had the conversation with him. And so first, she's got to change herself, meaning she shouldn't be drinking. And second, she's got to change herself by not being silent about her trauma and explaining to this person that she loves what's actually going on. And third, she needs to make a request, which is, could you not drink? Or would you be willing to abide by these things because it's triggering me? And if you and your partner can't have these conversations, and if your partner is unwilling to do things and go to therapy and to work on the relationship, then the relationship is over as far as I'm concerned. Because a relationship only grows when two people grow together. And in order for two people to grow together, you have to both be willing to have open communication and to support each other in the powerful requests. Now, keep in mind, what's the #1 rule of relationships? You can't change somebody else. You can only change yourself. However, you can make powerful requests grounded in the truth about what you need to be supported. It is your partner's right to deny them. It's your partner's right to agree to them. And all you can do is change yourself and make powerful requests. What your partner does is what your partner does. You can't control him or her. You can inspire them. You can push them. You can shame them. You can blame them. You can coach them. You can cajole them, but you cannot control them. Okay? I know a lot of narcissists out there are trying to control your partners, but you can't control them. And so what you got to do is, after you try to change yourself and after you make clear and powerful requests about what you need to address in this relationship in order to make it psychologically safe and loving for you, your partner is free to do what he or her would like to do. And now you have to make a decision about whether or not you're willing to be in a relationship with somebody that is denying the requests that you are making about what you need for your own psychological safety. That's it. That's it. That's all you can do. That's what's in your control. Your behavior and your requests. And then based on what your partner does in response, now you got to choose. And here's the thing. Don't pay attention to what they say. Watch their actions. Because people pay a lot of lip service to changing, but if you really want to know what somebody's committed to, watch what they're doing. We've got a great question about dealing with relationships, friendships, where you have a close friend who's a real downer and they've got all kinds of issues and they are draining the you-know-what out of your energy. It happens all the time. I'm going to say a couple things about this. I have something that I call the 6-month rule. For the people in your life, your friends, your family, people are going to go through ups and downs, and I think it's super, super, super important that you be there for people, that you listen to the things that they're struggling with, that you give advice, that you help them find resources. You must do that. That's just part of being an incredible friend. However, when the issue sticks around so long that your friendship spirals into a situation where that friendship is nothing more than you listening to somebody complain, and now it's zapping your energy, now it's time for you to change how you're behaving in the friendship. So this is why I call it the 6-month rule. For 6 months, absolutely listen to somebody. Give them all the advice, be the shoulder they cry on, let them bitch and kvetch and all that stuff to you all day long. But if after 6 months your friend is still complaining and doing nothing, and is still complaining and acting helpless, is still stuck in that rut and refusing to take your advice, it's really important that you draw some boundaries. And it's important for you, it's also important for your friend. So here's what you're gonna do. You're basically just gonna say, look, I love you. I know you're going through a hard time, but I will no longer listen to you complain about it. And the reason why is because it's not helping you, and it's really starting to make me sad that you're still this stuck and you're not taking action. Let's definitely hang out. Let's spend a lot of time together, but we're not allowed to talk about this anymore. The second you start taking action to fix the situation, we can talk about it again. And you know that I'm here for you, but I'm not here for you so that you can stay stuck. I'm here for you so that you can get better, so that you can grow. Now, I had a friend about a decade ago who was in a situation where she had just been broken up with. I think she was struggling with an eating disorder because she was getting scary thin. And for 6 months straight, she would complain about her body, complain about how depressed she was, but she refused to see a therapist. She refused to seek counseling. She refused to read the books that I gave her. And I finally said to her, I'm really, really worried about you because this situation is scaring me and you're not doing anything. And so we're no longer allowed to talk about this unless you're going to go get some professional help or you're going to start taking some small steps to get healthy again. She stopped talking to me, completely stopped talking to me. Do you know, she reached out to me in Facebook, gosh, like 2 years ago, and told me that that was one of the most confronting conversations, and it actually was the wake-up call that she needed. And right after the conversation where I said, you're scaring me and we're not going to talk about this anymore unless you start to take steps, her mother had a very similar conversation and she started to get the help that she needed. So you never know what a difference it's going to make in the person's life when you're willing to be that honest. You also need to be doing that for your own sanity and your own well-being. So 6-month rule: when friends are depressed, when friends are stuck, when friends are going through a really tough time, absolutely positively be there. Let them cry, let them complain, let them suck the energy out of everything because they need you. Provide all the help and resources you can, and then after 6 months, if this is starting to drain you and if they're doing absolutely nothing to get better, that's when you draw the line. Breaking up with somebody that you care about is one of the hardest things in the world to do, but you have to do it. If you really love this person with all your heart, you would end this. And here's how I can prove it to you. Would you want somebody to do this to you? If somebody told you that they loved you, but they knew that they didn't want to be with you long term, but they led you on and they stayed with you, wasted years of your life, and then broke up with you, is that love? No, that's manipulation. That's using someone. That is a terrible thing to do. If you truly love this person, you will tell them the truth. You see, you're not staying in this relationship for them. You're staying in it for yourself because you're too scared to disappoint somebody. You're too scared to be alone. That isn't fair. So what you have to do, if you really love this person, is you got to tell them the truth. I love you, but we do not have a future together. And for your sake and my sake, I need to end this today. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pain-free. It's going to be painful. But I'll tell you what, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, you're going to feel 1,000,000 times better. And what's going to hurt you for about a week is going to help you for years. So just do the right thing and end it. Oh, now we have a really awesome personal question. What's my favorite recipe? I am a humongous cook. I love to bake bread. I love to cook. My mom grew up in a huge farm family. I grew up in the kitchen, just watching my mom cook out of the pantry, meaning no recipe whatsoever. My mom bought me this cookbook, 6 Seasons. It is my favorite cookbook. Look at all the tabs here. I use it all the time. And my favorite recipe out of this, please steal this, is called braised beef with lots and lots of onions. It is f***ing fantastic. And you want to know what I love about it most? It has very few ingredients, and you throw it all into a pot. You put it in the oven for hours and hours and hours. You literally could cook this for 2 hours or 7 hours, and it would make no difference. It is the most tender, lip-smacking, delicious beef. Take a big hunk of beef, put some butter, some olive oil, some onions, like 3 pounds of onions, and thyme and 1 cup of white wine. Throw it in a pot, put the lid on, forget about it. Forget about it. 3 or 4 hours later, it's like beef butter. I mean, you've never tasted anything as fabulous in your life. So that is braised beef with lots and lots of onions from the 6th season Joshua McFadden, my favorite cookbook right here. You can thank me later. And always double the recipe because trust me, you're going to want it for sandwiches. You're going to want it for all kinds of stuff. All right, final question on what the Mel. Now you know why we called this What the Mel, because you're probably like, what the Mel is going on with her today? There's a lot of you that are going to relate to this. And if you're not dealing with this, forward this to a friend who is and help them out. Bridget has aging parents. Her parents are very difficult. This breaks my heart, Mel. I don't know how to solve this problem. I'm the caretaker for my parents. I feel stressed and anxious because I believe that I'm not going to feel free or stress-free as long as it takes to take care of them. They're not getting better. That's a fact. How can I go through this without being so anxious about it all the time? So when you're in a situation like you are that is wildly stressful, but it's finite, meaning this is temporary. You just said it's a fact. Your parents are getting worse. Eventually they're going to die. We don't know how much time this is going to take, but we do know it's not going to go on forever. This is temporary. When you're in this situation, you've got one of 3 choices. You can either engage in magical thinking and try to convince yourself that somehow your parents are going to recover and they're going to die in their sleep. I do not like that choice, because it's not actually aligned with the facts, and it also requires something to happen outside of you, so you don't have any control. So that is a dumb thing, but you could do it. The second thing that you could do is, if you can afford it, you could replace yourself in the situation. You could hire somebody to do the job that you're doing. You could cajole your family members to help you and support you through that. That's a choice that you have. Or there's the third thing. You can change your attitude about what's happening. And this is where you need to focus. Because if you're resisting this, if you're anxious about it, if you're stressed about it, if you're gripped about it, you're going to torture yourself as you go through something. And you don't need to do that. If you're the only person that's caring for declining, aging, very stressful parents, you got to make sure you take care of yourself. You need to make sure that you are doing some kind of mindfulness practice. And personally, I would outsource it. I would get some audiobooks to listen to, or the Calm app, or one of these other meditation apps that you listen to as you're commuting back and forth to your parents, or as you're driving them places, or as you're in the kitchen cooking, that you're listening to something that is calming your mind. I want you to institute some kind of very small self-care something right now that is a daily practice, that becomes a daily ritual. It's just something you're doing for you. It could be as simple as taking a walk around the block in the morning in silence. It could be pouring a glass of wine at night and stepping outside and staring at the stars. It could be setting a timer at 3:45 in the afternoon and pouring yourself a cup of tea and taking 15 minutes for yourself. But you must put something in place every single day that acts as a grounding moment, that grounds you back in your body, that grounds you back into your life, and that gives you a moment to exhale. You just accept where things are and start working on your attitude. You remind yourself that this is temporary. Practice mindfulness by listening to meditation apps, and you find one simple ritual to do every day for you. And that is how you are going to weather this storm. Because that's the only choice you got. You can suffer through it, or you can support yourself through it. But either way, honey, you're going to have to go through it. I want to talk to you about my favorite phrase when it comes to motivating yourself. And I know if you've followed me for a while, you have heard me say this phrase before, but this is so accurate. It's so motivating. Before I tell you what this phrase is, let me ask you, have you ever had an experience where you were so frustrated with yourself because you knew that there were things that you wanted to start doing, or there were changes that you wanted to make, or things that you wish you could prioritize, and you just couldn't seem to pull yourself out of the day-to-day grind. That no matter how much you thought about it or contemplated it or just wanted things to change, that whether it was self-doubt or fear or the demands of your day-to-day life, you just couldn't seem to make traction on changing. Yeah, I see some of you going, yeah, I feel like I'm trying constantly and nothing's gaining traction. I feel frustrated all the time because as much as I think about the things that I really want to be doing, I don't see myself making forward progress, right? It's almost like when I was in college, or no, high school. When I was in high school, I had a gerbil named Ralph. And let me tell you about this gerbil, okay? This gerbil made me kind of angry, honestly. And the reason why this gerbil made me kind of angry is because he was really, really quiet during the day. Like he would nestle into his little shredded thing in the corner. And he never was that social or interested when I was walking into the room. And I'll tell you what, the second that I would turn off the lights in my bedroom to go to sleep, that freaking gerbil would get on that wheel and just and do you ever have a pet like that? Very nocturnal. We currently have a cat, Mr. Noodle. I see somebody going, until midnight, oh my gosh. And when I get into those modes where there's something that I really want to do, like I feel this kind of friction and this frustration with myself because I know that I'm not as happy as I could be. I know that there's a change I need to make. I know that I'm focused on the wrong stuff. I know that my emotions are getting the best of me. I often feel like my mind is my gerbil Ralph on the hamster wheel, just spinning. So can you relate to that? Can you relate to that? Yeah, of course you can, because that is like such a common experience of sort of knowing this thing that you want and you can just almost reach it, but you don't have that sensation that you're actually grabbing it. I'm so glad that so many of you relate to this because I've been thinking about this a lot. And now I am, of course, overheating, so I'm going to take off my sweater. That's what happens when you're 53. And I think about this a lot because, I see even people that I love struggling with this. We have a daughter who is a singer-songwriter studying pop music out at USC. She's got all the talent, all the resources, all the skills, and there's always something that is stopping her from just starting to put music out, right? Or maybe you can relate to that in health. You really are like, this is the year. Like for me, I keep thinking I gotta take some time to get the hormone thing. Just understand it. Like what food should I even be eating? And I think about it like that hamster on the wheel, but I can't seem to make myself launch forward. Another example I can give you is for years, everybody, I dreamt of launching a podcast. And I would watch all these people that I admire out in the world launching a podcast. And I would just spin. And so I'm so glad that you can relate to this. So tell me, is there some project or some area of your life or a business or a goal or some change that you want to make that you feel like you think about all the time, but you just can't seem to push through all of that thinking or push through the fatigue or the overwhelm or how do I get started, right? You can't seem to just push through. Is there some area of your life where you feel that way? If so, I want you to write it in the comments, okay? I see I want to work with animals. I see somebody going, oh my gosh, I keep thinking about doing a TikTok account. Oh, I want to get control of my addiction. Oh, I want to launch a business. Oh, I really want to get a degree, but I feel like it's too late. And you may be telling yourself that things just feel like it's too late, Mel. Like I got a divorce and now it feels like my life is frozen. I see some of you saying. I feel like ever since I got the divorce or the pandemic hit or I lost the job or I took the wrong job or I moved to the wrong place or I realized that I wanted to start this thing and I started it, but now it's stalled out and I'm embarrassed to keep starting. I want to finish my PhD. I want to be persistent with the gym. I want to get back to creating art. I see all this stuff that y'all are writing down. It's beautiful. I see so many of you saying that you have a little side hustle and you know that you want to turn your attention towards it, but you just can't seem to literally push through whatever it is, the fear, the overwhelm, the busyness of your life, to laser focus on what really matters to you. And I think that's why it's so painful, because you're not going to stop really wanting and longing for those things that you keep thinking about everybody. They're going to linger for the rest of your life. You're going to have to, at some point, make a decision that it is important enough to you to make changes so that the thing that you want to see happen, or the life that you don't want to miss out on, or the degree that you always longed to get, or the way that you want to feel in your body, or the energy. For me, a big theme recently has been about loneliness. I am so lonely in my personal life because of the pandemic, because our kids have launched, because we're moving to Vermont, because I'm always working. Like, I can see very clearly that I have tried to solve loneliness in my personal life by working all the time. And that's not the right solution for loneliness. And so I even see all this. And so I'm glad that you can see an area of your life where you feel this friction and tension, because you know that you want to focus more time and energy there, but there's so much resistance and there's so much friction and there's so much else going on that it is robbing you of the ability to push forward toward the life that you really want to be living. And look, it's not going to happen overnight, but so let me tell you, this sentence, this truth about life that I truly love, that always kicks me in the rear end, honestly. And here it is. No one is coming. That's it. No one's coming. No one is going to come into your life and do the work for you. No one is going to come into your life and just remove your problems. No one is going to come into your life and make your dreams come true. When it comes to the changes that you want to make, when it comes to the things that you long for in your heart, when it comes to the music that you want to put out into the world, or the TikTok account that you want to create, or the degree that you want to get, or the life you want to build after divorce, or after your partner dies, or after, you change jobs, or after the kids launch. When it comes to those things that you deeply long for, deserve, and desire, no one's coming. You are not too late. If you're breathing, you're watching this video, you have plenty of time to create a life that makes you happy, to create a life that is full of meaning for you, whatever that means. You have plenty of time to take control, to heal. It is so important for you to hear that you have plenty of time. But no one's coming. At some point, you have to make a decision. And you'll often hear me say, you're one decision away from a different life, a better life. But you have to make the decision. No one's coming to make the decision for you. You have to decide that you are done feeling beaten up. You're done feeling lost. You're done feeling stuck. You're done feeling isolated. That all that crap that you've been enduring, you're freaking done. You have to decide that. And what's interesting is that once you decide, you realize no one's coming. Like, I often joke that, I'm not the kind of expert that really learns this stuff by reading it in a book. Unfortunately, I'm kind of a stubborn learner. So my life has required me to either fall into a hole or dig one for myself. And then I wallow at the bottom of the hole, feeling sorry for myself and stuck and frustrated and angry. And then I realize, oh my God, nobody's coming. Like if I want to get out of this hole that I'm in emotionally, financially, health-wise, in my career, in my whatever the hole may be, I got to build a ladder. And it's that decision. I'm not staying here. I don't know where I'm going, but it's not here. It's that decision, the decision that no one's coming to do this for me. I'm deciding that I want more. I'm deciding that these last 2 years where I felt like I got thrown into a dryer and life just tumbled me around, and all of a sudden the dryer stopped and I'm like in there covered in lint and beaten up and staticky. We got to kick the door open, people. We got to make a decision that all that crap that you just struggled through and that you learned through, that it happened so that you could wake up and you could literally make a decision that the next freaking chapter of your life, you're not going to be unhappy. You're not going to just get by. You are going to make a decision that you are going to do the work to change. And here's what's fascinating. Once you decide, that's it. That's it. I'm changing. That's it. I'm going to do the work, whatever it takes. I made a decision that our kids have left this house that we've raised them in. I'm here alone all the time working. I'm like, I'm sad. I'm miserable. I got to change. I can't just hold on and grip to what I know, especially if it's making me unhappy. And here's the thing, letting go, deciding that it's time for a change, that's a lot easier than gripping onto stuff that's no longer meant to you. And so when you make a decision, and I see so many of you going, my life fell apart after divorce, my life, blows because of my job, my life has been in stuck mode ever since this person I love died, or my life is just kind of boring and I miss having fun, okay? Like when you kind of have that wake up moment and you're like, oh my God, nobody's going to come and do this for me. No friends are showing up to bring the party bus. If I want to have my life feel like a party bus, I got to be the one that actually is driving it. You know what I'm saying? So here's the cool thing. No one's coming. Once you make that decision, here's the cool thing. Everybody shows up when you ask for help. Everybody shows up when you ask for help. Do not try to change on your own. I tried that for so long. Yes, it's your responsibility. Yes, you need to do the work, but don't do it on your own. Do not do that. You know, I just got a text about 11 minutes ago from a really good friend of mine. I'm not going to say who my friend is, because many of you probably know who this person is, because she has a large social media following, and she's absolutely amazing. And she reached out to me kind of sheepishly, and she said, a couple people have been asking me if I would speak at a big event. I know nothing about this. I'm scared to do it, but I've decided that this is something I want to try. Now, she made a decision that this is something she wants to walk toward, even though she's scared. And did you notice what she did? She didn't try to figure it out on her own. She reached out to me to ask for help. Now, I'm going to coach her. I'm going to tell her everything I know. I have been the most booked female speaker in the world for years. I am one of the most successful motivational speakers on the corporate circuit ever on the planet, male or female. And so there are so many mistakes I made trying to do it on my own. When I think about how much I have learned about things like speaking or podcasting or even my marriage or raising kids, the mistake that I make when I try to do it on my own, holy cow, talk about headache and heartache. She's so smart. She made a decision to walk towards something she wants, but that she's afraid of. And then she asked for help. Because the secret is, once you know that you don't want to be where you are, that's all you need to know in order to change your life. I don't know where I'm going. I just don't know I don't want to stay here. That's a starting spot. That's perfect. That means you started. That's the first rung of the ladder. I'm not staying where I am. The next one is literally figure out what people who have what you want, whether it's just people who are happy or what are they doing that you're not doing. There's a little bit of the map. And then you gotta ask for help. And so I can think of times in my life where I have been trying to do something new, whether it's fix an issue in my marriage. I don't do that on my own. Are you kidding me? My husband and I, we go to a marriage therapist and ask for help. We talk to very close friends of ours about what's going on and ask for help. When I get serious about wanting to make a change, it's the new Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins, for the first 45 years, I would try to do it in secret. I would try to figure it out on my own. I was embarrassed to tell people that I needed structure and accountability, and I needed to be told what to do, and I needed somebody to bring some energy. And so I don't do that anymore. That's one of the reasons why my success has skyrocketed. And it's what I'm also doing with now the other areas of my life: happiness, balance, ease, a better business model. I'm freaking asking for help. I'm surrounding myself with people that bring the energy and bring the accountability and bring the structure. And that's exactly what my friend did by texting me. Hey, I know this person that's ahead on the path. I'm gonna, like, now that I know and I've taken the steps and I'm asking her to give me advice, to tell me what to do. And so while no one's coming, which I hope is a freaking wake up call for you, I hope that's exactly what you needed to hear right now. In fact, tell me in the comments, what does no one's coming mean to you? And don't be snarky, and sexual about it. I know I went viral on TikTok because some kids made fun of me for saying that. But seriously, what does that mean when you think about your dreams, or you think about your life, or you think about what you want? That no one is going to come in here and do this work for you. That no one is going to heal you. No one is going to do what you need to do to have the breakthrough that you need in order to create the life that I do not want you to miss out on. Okay? So once you make that decision that you are literally done with where you are, that you are going to do the work, well, now I'm here. So I have to tell you, I want to help you. I want to be your coach. I'm just going to ask. I want to be your coach. If you have ever thought, wow, how cool would it be to have Mel Robbins as my coach? This is actually the only opportunity you're going to get in 2022. I have decided, after reading your DMs and after reading your emails and after seeing what you have gone through this pandemic, I'm so proud of you. And guess what? It's time to frickin' launch. It's time to launch forward. It's time to shake off the negativity, the sadness, the stuckness, the isolation, and it's time to take control of your life. And that's why I want to be your coach, seriously. So when I was a young lawyer, I worked the night shift as a public defender in Manhattan. So I would literally go to work at 11 o'clock at night, and I wouldn't get home until 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was exhausted. And so, I think that what I would do is, a lot of times what ends up happening in a relationship is, do you ever notice that change creeps into it? And all of a sudden change is upon you and you find that things aren't working. And then you're inside the change and you don't know how to evolve it so that it works for you. And so what I would do is I would find a weekend and I would carve out an hour or two and I would have an Uber meeting with your spouse. And I would have a very open dialogue that, given where you are now in your life, your age, if you have children, how old are your children? If you have pets, how many pets do you have? And whatever the shift is now in your life, what support systems do you need from one another that make you feel connected? It might be that when your husband's coming home from the night shift, if you have breakfast out and a cup of coffee waiting, it feels like the most tremendous act of love. If he then wakes up for his shift and he has dinner with you, but he's preparing it. It feels like an act of love. Like there are ways to have these meaningful connections, but you have to be intentional about it. One of the things that I realized is that I think a book that would probably help because you're focused on time is, if you haven't read the 5 Love Languages, I would read that. Or I would take one of the free quizzes online about it, because Chris and I had a lot of misunderstanding because I communicate through gifts of affection. And that's how I communicate love. I also do, what's it called?
Acts of service.
What's the one where you compliment somebody?
Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. I am a words of affirmation person. Holy smokes. I should literally walk around life wearing a cheerleader outfit. I really should. Chris is all acts of service. And so Chris does acts of service in silence, and it never translated for me because I'm looking for the kind of love language that I speak, which is I want gifts. And I want, not like material stuff, but just like, give me some flowers, or, like do something. And it sounds so rude, but, and I also want you to tell me I look nice. Tell me I did a good job. Chris is acts of service and acts of affection. We have the exact opposite love languages. And so even getting on the same page about what you need from each other in terms of how you speak it and how you receive it, it will disappear the issue of having opposite work schedules, because maybe what you need while your husband's working night shift is for him to send you 2 or 3 texts in the middle of the night so that you wake up and you immediately see that he was thinking about you. Maybe that's what you need. Maybe he needs acts of service, meaning the coffee is ready so that he knows that he's not forgotten. And so I would have an Uber alignment meeting based on not where you've been, but where you are and where you want to go. And I would use the 5 love languages as a way to give that conversation structure about what you need. If you do want to improve your relationship, there's a simple thing about relationships. The one thing that will change any relationship dynamic, whether it's family or friends or romantic, committed partnership, the one thing that changes any relationship is you going out of your way to make sure somebody else's fundamental needs are met. Are you showing up in a way that your family feels seen and heard and appreciated? Are you reaching out? Are you acknowledging what they're doing? Are you complimenting them on the things that they're doing? For many, many years, my mom and I were at a complete deadlock. We loved each other to death, but we didn't understand each other. And because we didn't understand each other, because in many ways we're super similar and in other ways we're very different, because we didn't understand each other, there was a lot of pent-up hurt because we wanted to feel connected. We wanted to feel supported by one another. But because we live our lives so differently, she's in the Midwest, in the house that I grew up in a really small town. I went east for college. I never came home. We both hate the fact that we don't live near each other. And instead of somehow coming together and figuring out new ways to be more deeply connected rather than living next door to each other, we stopped understanding each other, and that led to a lot of this. And when you stop understanding each other, then you cross your arms and go, oh, well, I'm over here, and why are you over there? And, if come on over the line, and then I'll feel safe with you again. And so we were in a standoff for a long time. A lot of misunderstanding, kind of hurt feelings, bristly phone calls. When I'd get together, either going to see my folks or then coming here, it'd be tense because there was so much unresolved stuff because we didn't understand each other. I wanted her to be loving. She wanted me to be loving. I wanted her to make more of an effort. She wanted me to make more of an effort. Does this sound familiar, everybody? Well, if you want to stop the tug of war that comes from misunderstanding, drop the rope and understand that everybody on the planet just wants to be seen, to be heard, and to be celebrated. And one of the things that has profoundly changed my relationship with my mom, it's started to heal it, is first of all, I've done a tremendous amount of work on myself for my own childhood trauma, my own nervous system. Healing yourself is the greatest way to heal any other relationship, because every relationship starts with you. But the second thing that I did is 3 days a week, I have an alarm that goes off in my phone at the same time that says, call mom. And I pick up the phone and I call my mom. And the only intention behind that call is to just check in and ask her a bunch of questions about what's going on, and to show up in a way, no strings attached, that makes my mom know that I see her, I hear her, and I appreciate and celebrate her. And I notice that the more frequently we talk and check in, the way more connected we are, the way more we understand one another. And it's been and was one way for a long time, because I did it with no strings attached. I did it not to fix my mom. I did it to empower a dynamic where I was showing up differently. And by me showing up differently, it has created a way for her to show up differently, because she now feels emotionally safe with me. She now feels like I understand her again. She now, and says this, I feel like you're back. I feel like the daughter that left for college and never came home has actually come home. And that has happened because I've worked on myself, because I have stopped doing what you're doing, which is crossing your arms and going, nobody understands me, and why don't they support me, and why don't they show up differently? And I've instead said, this matters to me. So I'm going to give my folks what I have been wishing I'd get from them. And that shifts everything, because behind any person that doesn't understand you, or any person that you have some kind of toxic dynamic, I promise you, there is either their own childhood trauma and untreated stuff that they don't have any idea that is impacting their current relationships, or more likely, or on top of, there's hurt feelings. Somebody feels disrespected, somebody feels invisible, somebody feels disconnected. And human beings, instead of leaning toward each other, tend to cross their arms and lean back. It's a protection mechanism.
How do I rebuild my relationship with myself when starting from ground zero?
So, Mel, this is a pretty broad, expansive question, and so I thought maybe we would talk about this, and then we would narrow down into specifically what we're talking about. So starting from ground zero might mean, hey, I had a traumatic event happen to me, or maybe my life is changing. Maybe I'm reaching a point in my life where I need to do something different. I'm learning that everything I've done to make me happy or fulfilled or satisfied isn't working. So for Federico, where do we even start? What do we talk about?
You actually start the exact same place we all have to start. Every morning in the mirror. Every single morning in the mirror. You see, the most important relationship that you have in life is the one you have with yourself. It is the foundation of every relationship that you have. It's the foundation of how you experience life. And what we are going to punch a hole through today is the fact that every single human being has a disgusting, ugly, self-destructive habit that nobody is talking about that is part of your morning routine.
Yeah.
And here's the habit. Frederico and everybody on the planet currently stands in front of the mirror as they brush their teeth. Hopefully you're brushing your teeth and wiping that gunk out of your mouth, right? So we get rid of the dragon breath. But as you're doing that, you're doing one of two things. Every human being does this. You either beat the daylights out of yourself and you focus on all the stuff you need to fix, the things you hate, the parts of yourself you can't stand. And that's the good news, because the majority of people are doing the other thing. This is sad. The majority of people cannot even look at themselves in the mirror because they are disgusted, or they are disappointed, or they don't like how long they've let themselves go. And so every morning, part of your morning routine right now, and this goes so down to the core of what's not working and what you can easily flip and change. Because if you stand in front of the mirror and you can't even look at yourself, that is a habit of self-rejection that gets repeated every single day. You are not even secure enough with yourself and accepting enough of yourself to look at the mirror and see, holy cow, because here's the other thing I want everyone to understand right now. We're going to explain the high five habit, but here's the first breakthrough. You're either, be honest with yourself, which do you do? Do you not look in the mirror, or do you focus on the things that you need to fix?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do look in the mirror, and yeah, there's certainly, I'm going through the day, I'm like thinking how I could have done things differently, what I need to do the next day. Yeah. So I do look in the mirror.
Okay.
Yeah. I tend to avoid looking in the mirror. Yeah. Why is that?
You tell me.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, think about it. Why do you think you don't look in the mirror?
I've never thought that it was a necessity to gaze upon myself. I mean, I'm sure I glance. There's a picture of me in the mirror, but it becomes second nature in a way.
Yes.
And so I don't beat myself up so much. I mean, that's a different sort of story that we tell ourselves. But I've never thought about the power of looking in the mirror and how that might actually benefit me.
Well, I want you to consider it's not a reflection. There are 2 human beings in the bathroom with you every morning. There's you.
And my daughter, she's always
So now there's 4.
bothering me in the bathroom.
Or the dog or whatever. Or there's 2 human beings.
Right.
There's you, and there's a human being in the mirror. And the human being in the mirror is really trying. And they are in need of your support. And they are in need of your encouragement. And they need you to wake up and to see them. And they need you to stop beating them up. And they need some encouragement. And this is a really deep thing. And it begins every morning by simply taking a moment and being with the human being in the mirror, which I think represents your soul, your spirit, your potential. For people that, kind of like the inner child work and that stuff, it represents the person inside you that's still trying to heal. And if you begin your day every day by not looking in the mirror or by picking apart the things you don't like, 91% of women do not like how they look.
Wow.
50% of people cannot look in the mirror. And what you just said is exactly right. Most of us, it's so casual, spend that moment drifting into the day where we start to think about all the things we need to do. Or, if you're like a lot of us, you're already pile driving yourself going, I got up too late and I got to answer that email and I didn't get this done and and then you catch yourself in the mirror and you then start, oh my God, I look like crap and I got to be on a Zoom call in 8 minutes and I haven't walked the dog yet. And the pile driving begins. And you guys know that once your attitude goes negative, it's going to continue to take you down. And so first things first, we got to break the habit of self-rejection. And we need to create a new habit of partnership, trust, encouragement, compassion, connection to self. Because if we can start to help you every morning to start your day with a little bit of partnership and compassion with yourself, if you can build the ability to like yourself, even if you're not where you want to be in life, it won't matter if other people don't like you because that can't change the fact that you like yourself. And so this isn't about being a narcissistic asshole. This is not about being a jerk. This is not about being selfish. This is not about being some cocky, overconfident. This is about compassion. This is about support. This is about your most fundamental, profound needs. Love people, use things. That's your book. None of us know how to love ourselves. And it begins every morning with this new habit I want you to create that I created during a terrible moment in my life called the high five habit. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.